You're standing in the checkout line at a hardware store. There's a bottle of drain cleaner in your hand. $8.47. Behind you, someone is talking about their new truck payment. The number hanging in the air like a challenge. $735 a month. You nod. You smile. You make the sound people make when they're supposed to be impressed. And then you pay your $8.47 and you leave. Nobody in that building has any idea that your phone contains a portfolio summary that crossed a number most people will never see in a lifetime. You should feel powerful. Instead, you feel tired, not from the errand, from the math, the constant invisible math of deciding who gets to see what. Here is what psychology knows that the finance gurus ignore. The moment you successfully hide significant wealth from the world around you, your brain does not simply keep a secret. It begins to rewire your entire sense of self. Living rich in secret does not just protect your money from other people's expectations. It changes the actual architecture of who you are, and that change is deeper than the number in your account. In the next 6 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what that change looks like inside your mind, why secrecy can feel like armor and loneliness at the exact same time, and why the person you become in the silence is often more valuable than the wealth you are hiding.
We are told that success is supposed to be visible. The promotion post, the new car in the driveway, the watch that signals you have arrived. Social media has turned life into a continuous status broadcast, and your brain was never built to survive it. Evolutionarily, your amygdala, the part of your brain scanning for threat and tracking social standing, was designed for a village of roughly 150 people. It could track who had more grain, who had better shelter, who was rising and who was falling. But it was never meant to process the highlight reels of 500 acquaintances, all performing abundance simultaneously, while you compare your lowest moments to their best. When your wealth becomes visible, something called the spotlight tax activates. Every person who knows what you have begins to relate to the money instead of to you. The cousin who calls after 4 years of silence. The friend who suddenly has a business idea that needs seed capital.
The colleague who starts calculating your share of the bill differently, who watches your order at dinner the way a judge watches a defendant. Your brain registers each of these micro shifts as social threat. Your cortisol rises. Your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for calm, complex decision-making, begins to allocate its limited resources to managing other people's perceptions instead of managing your own life. You are not being paranoid. Your nervous system is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It is protecting you from the oldest danger in human history, being seen as a target. But here is where it gets interesting. When you choose secrecy, not as shame, but as strategy, your brain enters a state that researchers call identity compartmentalization. You are simultaneously two people. The public self, who drives the used Honda with the crack in the bumper, and the private self, who knows the exact number in the Q3 portfolio summary, the one that arrived with no exclamation mark, no champagne, just 12-point Times New Roman in a fluorescent-lit aisle. This duality is not a flaw. It is a forge.
Cognitive dissonance theory tells us that holding two conflicting beliefs creates psychological tension. But when that tension is deliberate, when you have consciously chosen the gap between what people see and what you know, that tension becomes a kind of psychological resistance training. Your self-concept stops being borrowed from other people's reactions. It has to be built from the inside out, because there is no external validation coming. There is no applause for the laundromat. There is no LinkedIn post for the parking lot. There is just you, sitting with a number that the world does not acknowledge and deciding that it matters anyway. The comments under every stealth wealth video reveal this perfectly. People do not say, "I want the money." They say, "I want the option to say no. I want to move through life without being perceived as a target." What they are actually craving is something psychology calls self-determination theory in its purest form. Autonomy, the ability to make choices that are not influenced by the expectation of an audience. And then there is the lonely.
When you watch a friend struggle through something you could fix in 60 seconds, and you choose not to because you understand that removing the struggle would remove the growth, that is not financial wisdom. That is a specific kind of emotional isolation. Research on secret keeping shows that concealing significant information increases cognitive load and prefrontal cortex activity. Applied to wealth,
This means your brain is constantly running a background program. Who knows, who does not, what can be said, what must be held. That load creates maturity, but it also creates distance. You are choosing long-term integrity over short-term relief, and your brain registers that choice as growth, but your heart registers it as silence. That is the real change. The money sits in the account, compounding quietly, but you stop needing the room to know. But here is the dangerous part. There is one specific mistake that 90% of people make when they try to live rich in secret. It does not look like a mistake. It looks like modesty. It looks like the Honda Pilot and the fleece from the sporting goods store, and the shrug when someone asks what you do. The mistake is not the secrecy. The mistake is when the performance of ordinary starts to feel like a prison. When you have been pretending to be the person who cannot afford things for so long that you begin to believe your own costume. When stealth wealth becomes stealth.
And if you do not catch it, you will wake up one day with the number you wanted and the emotional range of someone who is still pretending they do not have it. I will tell you exactly how to avoid that in the next section. First, practice what I call the boring asset mindset. In finance, boring assets are the ones that keep paying while nobody watches. The laundromat, the parking lot, the utility bill. Apply this to your behavior. Make your daily habits so unremarkable that they require no explanation, not because you are hiding, but because you are conserving energy. The goal is not to be invisible. The goal is to be uninteresting to anyone who is looking for a signal to exploit. When your habits are boring, your mind is free. Second, install a social thermostat. You need to consciously decide who gets access to which temperature of your life. Your accountant sees the folder. Your neighbor sees the Honda. Your best friend sees your time, not your balance sheet. This is not dishonesty. This is boundary architecture. The most psychologically healthy, wealthy people do not hide from everyone. They simply maintain different levels of disclosure for different levels of trust. Your brain needs at least one room where the full truth is known. Without that, the compartmentalization becomes a fracture, not a strategy. Third, and most importantly, practice dual identity integration. Once a month, do one thing that acknowledges both versions of you. Not a flashy purchase, not a performance, something private. Review your portfolio without anxiety. Walk through a neighborhood you could buy into without calculating square footage. Sit in the truth that you have built something, even if nobody clapped. This is how you prevent the costume from becoming the skin. You are not two people. You are one person who has learned to hold a truth quietly. The truth is, living rich in secret does not change your bank account. That number arrived in a boring email. Subject line, Q3 portfolio summary. No exclamation mark, no ceremony, just fluorescent light and the smell of a hardware store. What changes is the space between who you are and who people think you are. And in that space, if you build it correctly, you find something that money cannot purchase. The ability to move through your own life without performing. The option to say yes or no or nothing at all. You are not hiding. You are choosing. And that choice, repeated over years of Tuesday afternoons and Wednesday transfers and Saturdays at kitchen tables nobody photographed, becomes the architecture of a self that nobody can take from you. If this video gave you something to sit with today, I want you to comment below. I am the architecture. Let's fill the comments with that energy so the Inner Thought 26 community knows they are not alone in the silence.